operating budget for Montgomery County Public Schools. It's the Maryland Works Developing and Implementing Systems to Accelerate Youth Apprenticeships Grant. That's a long name for a grant. And it's for $724,442. It's a state grant. So welcome up the MCPS colleagues, I think, who are here to talk about this appropriation. And while you're sitting down, I'll say we had a really productive conversation briefing this morning in the Economic Development Committee with E&C. It was a joint committee where we talked about career pathways and workforce development, particularly for sports careers. We had the head of sports there, and obviously a lot of nexus, and we talked about a lot of interesting ideas about how to not only ramp up that industry, but also create more pathways into the economy of youth sports, which is, and not just youth sports, sports in general, which is a huge part of our economy. So we have continue that tradition with pathways today. I see we have Mr. Krupe here, who's going to lead us through the packet. But before we do that, can we just introduce everyone who's here from MCPS? If you hit your button, and there you go. I know who you are, but the public. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Sean Kraza, Supervisor for Work-Based Learning with MCPS.
Wonderful.
Good afternoon. Irina LaGrange, Director of College and Career Readiness and District-Wide Programs.
Hello, council members. I'm Tom Clausing. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Finance.
Thank you so much. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Krupe. Anything I left out?
Thank you, Chair Jawando. As noted, the purpose of today's work session is to discuss Supplemental Appropriation 2448 to the fiscal year 24 operating budget, $724,442 for the Maryland Works Developing and Implementing Systems to Accelerate Youth Apprenticeships Grant. The committee will also make a recommendation to the council. The supplemental appropriation will be used to develop and implement systems to accelerate and sustain youth apprenticeship opportunities. Specifically, the funds will be used to fund 3 temporary, part-time instructional staff positions, as well as contractual services, instructional materials, student transportation, and registration fees. The Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice found that the supplemental appropriation has the potential to advance racial equity and social justice in the county. The source of funds is a state grant. As a result, this appropriation has no impact on general fund reserves in fiscal year 24. When the grant term ends on September 30th, 2024, MCPS plans to absorb ongoing operational costs through existing Perkins and Title IV grants. Council staff recommends approval.
Thank you very much. So maybe anything you want to add on the absorption or how it's going and who you've contracted with, and just anything you want to say about the program?
Certainly. I will just start with a bit of an overview. We are really excited as part of our strategic plan for Montgomery County Public Schools in our being intentional in growing work-based learning. One of the components of work-based learning is apprenticeship. And we are not just trying to grow the numbers, but we're really thinking about how we're changing the narrative of what an apprenticeship is, how it's going to help students in their college and career trajectory and preparing them for careers, exposing them to different opportunities and interests, and making sure that when students are leaving high school, they have additional opportunities in their post-secondary pathways. In working with schools and being strategic again in growing those numbers, we have also been looking at ways to remove some of the barriers. So in working with school-based staff, listening to students, thinking about what are the barriers for students, what are the students' interests. So moving away from the traditional narrative of apprenticeship, looking at different industries, as you had just mentioned, and then being intentional in selecting schools that can help us grow those numbers and increase opportunities. And Mr. Krasa, if you want to speak specifically to the grant.
The Maryland Works Grant has given us opportunity to take a look at the current state of how we're approaching apprenticeship, from engaging with employers in Montgomery County to working with schools to help students access the opportunity. We are currently in year 3 of implementation. 2 years ago, we began with 2 students. Last year, we had 11. This year, we're up to 33. And as we continue to increase the number of students that are accessing apprenticeship, we're also building our employer portfolio of opportunities. At this point in time, we have 125 youth apprenticeship positions we look to fill by May of this year. And so the work around the Maryland Works grant and some of the systems and infrastructure that we're putting in place will help us continue to align with MCPS strategic goals and also Blueprint as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the numbers, but you said that already. Obviously, while that is great growth, we've got a lot of students, and Councilmember Mink and I actually were just at Burtonsville Middle School yesterday, and we had a roundtable with some of the students. I've been visiting all the clusters, and one of the students brought up the opportunity for more work-based learning even in middle school. And so whereas, obviously we're in the midst of Summer Rise registration right now. I got an update this morning. There's already more than 1,000 students that have applied just a week in. And this is a piece of that pie, right? Apprenticeship, internships, summer programming. But the middle school, it really challenged me to think about how do we, and they actually brought up career day, like, I want more than 30 minutes of just talking to someone in the career. I actually want to go and see, and I know we do some of that. And with the finance stuff, there's some aspects of that in middle school, but it just reminded us that these kids really want this, and so we have to scale it up. So could you talk a little bit about either one, whoever's best positioned, to what's the growth goal? Obviously 125 by May, that's great, but in this area, what do we see as kind of a long-term ramp up? And you can combine that with other areas too, if you'd like.
Certainly, just to speak to the first component, so also in speaking to middle school students, we noted that as part of a district, we have many different programs and opportunities for students. So we have 51 career and technical education programs. We have different regional and county-wide programs. And one thing that we noted from students is that oftentimes there's a sense of feeling overwhelmed and having awareness of what's available to them. So now this is the second year that we will this spring be introducing an asynchronous opportunity for students to learn in 7th grade about different opportunities when they get to high school in terms of career technical education programs, county programs, and then work-based learning. And so our goal again is to move beyond 8th grade. By 8th grade in the fall, students are looking at specific programs. So we felt that moving it to 7th grade and making sure that every student in middle school has an opportunity to learn about different programs in 7th grade will then allow them to ask questions. We have also created a new website. So there's one place on our portal where students can learn about work-based learning. And we do feel that this is going to be a partnership where we're going to have to work very closely with MCPS staff, but also engage our community, engage families, engage students, because we have so much to offer, but oftentimes it's just a marketing of getting it out and making sure that students are aware of what's available to them.
That's always a huge challenge. Yes, go ahead.
And to add to that too, with Maryland Works, in addition to building the current infrastructure for rising grade 11 and 12 students, we're also looking deeper to like 9 and 10 and even into the middle school age population so they can begin to be aware of apprenticeship. What is it? How do they access it? More importantly, how do they prepare for it? Planning ahead to get their driver's license or being able to use public transportation. And then also part of work-based learning, we recognize that transportation in some cases is a barrier. And so as we're engaging with employers, we're currently engaged in a conversation for a virtual apprenticeship opportunity. So then we start to put in those systems and structures, the technology that goes with that. So we are looking a little deeper than just the 11th and 12th grade student. We want students to be able to plan for being able to access apprenticeship when it's time.
And one thing that we shared with you last time, also in terms of the communication and making sure there's an equal playing field, we are working on the platform that allows students in every MCPS high school, regardless of their zip code, to see what internships and apprenticeships are available to them, so that it's no longer by neighborhood or what's down the street, so students can see across the district, across the county, what they're interested in, and they're able to apply for those positions. And what's also interesting, when we looked at our data, we looked at the number of students who are accessing due to abbreviated schedules. And so this is, again, where our piece in working with schools and making sure that we're educating students in understanding the difference between an internship and apprenticeship and just getting a job, right? Because many of apprenticeships are paid positions, as are many of our internships. So how do we help students with the internship and the apprenticeship? There comes an opportunity to build their resume, their cover letter. They're learning specific skills that are transferable past high school. And so again, really in terms of scaling, we're a small but mighty team. So we are, again, being intentional in using 4 high schools as our hubs that are going to be the model schools for the rest of the county, working close with the principals and school-based staff. And then we're also looking, once we have that, we're supporting schools with staffing. We have the staffing right now available in terms of work-based learning to help communicate opportunities and, again, making sure the schools are aware of their numbers and how many students are accessing work-based learning.
Appreciate that. And you said small but mighty team. So these positions, just to get to that, on this grant, you plan to absorb them into the budget? Is that, use this money, talk about what the plan is for that? Whoever's best.
Yeah, so the grant itself will allow us to continue to add staffing between now, and I'll just add too, there was a question about the date of the grant ending and is there opportunity for extension. Yesterday, I was in a meeting with MSDE and they had shared that we're going to be getting an updated notification that we would have to have funds requisitioned by September 30th, and then we would have until December 31st to spend down all funds. And so with staffing, we would work with temporary staffing to help build the systems like the work-based learning platform, the marketing material, the professional development training that would need to take place for our internship coordinators. All those systems and structures would be developed between now, well, we've been working on them since the start of the school year, but until December 30th. After December 30th, then the Perkins grant, Title IV grant, and local budget, yeah, that would be all part of our annual planning process, yes.
And what's the timeline on the platform, the work-based learning platform?
So we have we're in year 3 of the work-based learning platform, and we've reached a point where it has limits to what it's able to do. And so part of this grant will allow us to do an RFP to identify a more comprehensive platform to capture apprenticeship, internship, the tracking system, also the process for how we engage employers and help them complete the application to go through approval with Maryland Department of Labor. So we want a more comprehensive platform to be able to take it to that next level from where we're at now.
Right, and look at things countywide. So it sounds like that's just at the infancy, and since you have to design an RFP and go out for that, so that's going to take a little while, it sounds like.
So we have already drafted the RFP, and 2 years ago we had started with a pilot for our first version of a district-wide platform. So we piloted it before we went district-wide. We're district-wide now. We're in the first year of having all students be able to access this platform. And then simultaneously, while that's happening, this fall we drafted an RFP based on what we've learned from the current platform. And then we've done research nationwide. There's an organization, Partnership for Advancing Youth Apprenticeships, PAYA, and we've connected with them to see what other districts across the country are doing to design that platform. And so based on our research and what we've learned from this first version, we hope to have an even better version in 2.0.
Well, yeah, and I'll turn to my colleagues. This is so important to have it all in one place. I know you get that. And if we're going to scale these opportunities, which that's my mission in life, to make sure all of our students get a work-based learning opportunity, and I know you all care about that. That's a big component of it, having it all in one place, making it easy to understand, and then obviously ramping up the employer-based partnerships and all that as well. So
And so our goal is twofold. One is to make sure that on the MCPS side, our community, our staff are aware of what's available, what the requirements are, how to go through the process. But on the other hand, with apprenticeship, we also want to make it easier for businesses to be able to access, to understand what it is that it's involved for them to partner with us and what are the benefits of them working with us. And so right now, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to our healthcare, the dental program. I think that's been really innovative and exciting, and how that's going, because I think it just speaks to the new narrative.
Last year at this time, I had shared we were just beginning to partner with a dental assistant apprenticeship. And at this point in time, we have 20 students in the dental assistant apprenticeship program. They work half of their day in a dental office, and then Saturdays they're going to hands-on dental to get their related instruction training on dental assistant and radiology. And we have students currently looking at dental school and then also being a hygienist. So part of our proposal in Maryland Works is to look at apprenticeship and college being braided together. So it's not apprenticeship or college. In this type of example here with dental assistant, our students can begin as a dental assistant, and while they're going to dental school after high school, they can be working in a dental office as a dental assistant. So they're in that environment with those professionals, learning from the hygienist, the dentist, while they're engaged in their college studies. So that helps build their resume, it helps build their professional skills, as well as their degree and certification. So it's braiding the two together.
That's a great opportunity, and that's one of the many fields where you can't find enough. You go to your dentist, they're always talking about not being able to have enough or having to go to these expensive services to get temporary hygienists, and so that's awesome. All right, well, great to hear. I'm going to turn first to Councilmember Albornoz.
Thank you so much for being here. This is start out with a sort of an editorial comment, but there's a lot of good things that are happening in MCPS, that are unfortunately being overshadowed by some really significant challenges that we are going to get past. But I'm going to always take the opportunity to thank the incredibly dedicated professionals that we have that are working hard every day. And you once again provide wonderful examples of that. So thank you for being in this space, truly. A couple of just logistical questions. I'm not going to bury the lead. I, of course, support this grant. I think it's fabulous and love that we're already thinking about how to take it to scale. But just logistically, obviously with a full school day, all of the academic rigor and the requirements that the state puts on you all, how does this jive just logistically with being able to attend school? Are students given credit for this type of activity? Are there barriers there? And should we be thinking more aggressively about lobbying at the state level to make it easier for programs like this to exist?
The Apprenticeship Maryland program is a CTE program of study. It counts toward graduation, and it's advanced level credit. And depending on the apprenticeship that students are engaged in some cases they're also simultaneously enrolled in a college program. So they're getting high school credit, potentially earning college credit. And also in thinking about advancing in the systematic component, we want all students to be able to access apprenticeship. So part of this Maryland Works proposal is to partner with 4 hub high schools and work through the logistical components, the scheduling. How is it currently working? What do we need to take into consideration? How do we adjust? And based on our engagement and planning with those 4 high school principals, the counselors, the internship coordinator, we'll take what we have learned and replicate it to our other high schools throughout the district. And one of the barriers or challenges that continues to come up, and I continue to ask Maryland Department of Labor, how do we help students that might not have a Social Security number or I-9 access an apprenticeship? As a school district, we have a responsibility to educate all students. And that is one of the barriers with apprenticeship. We have students that would truly benefit from this. And when I ask Maryland Department of Labor, the Youth Apprenticeship Advisory Council, how can we help students access that if they don't have a Social Security number? They're response is that's a federal requirement. And as employers, they are required to hire. So that's one of the differences between apprenticeship and internship. An internship can be paid or unpaid, but an apprenticeship, it's required that they're paid minimum wage and they work 450 hours. And so we are doing our best as a school system to advocate for our students to be able to access it, but that could be one area that we could use support with.
Thank you, Sean. Another barrier that we've heard from both staff and students is transportation, right? So we have some of our high schools that are located in parts of the urban parts of our district, so students can't take the public transportation or the metro. But for many of our students, taking the public bus from point A to point B, while it might be just 10 miles, it can take up to an hour. So that's been the greatest barrier for students who are interested. And we know with Summarize, too, that many students share the difficulty of getting from point A to point B. So support with managing transportation would be really significant. You had also asked, what does this look like in a student's schedule? So for our high school students, they can complete up to 250 hours during the summer. So summer is a great time to get many of those hours done. There's also, depending on the job, sometimes students go in for half a day, so they can go in the mornings, take care of their academics, and then after lunch, they head out to their apprenticeship. So there's tremendous flexibility, but the student's schedule, the 7-period day, does allow students to leave, whether it's for internship or apprenticeship, and then to get there and to work in the afternoons. But summers are a significant component of that time.
Gotcha, I appreciate that. Yeah, the transportation issue is such a barrier in so many different spaces, and this is unfortunately another example of that. But I have to think there's some creative solutions that we've got to think through that probably cost money.
We're talking to other districts to see how they're managing it, and they've shared some creative ideas that we're exploring at this time. And so hopefully at one of the upcoming meetings, we'll be able to share some of our ideas with you.
That would be wonderful. And just the last two questions, and as chair of the HHS committee, it's music to my ears that a certain segment of these students are focusing on the dental practices. We just had a hearing about the lack of, the challenges in filling some of these key positions, and dental being a significant public health issue. So it is really exciting that we're being intentional. Are we looking at other career fields in those, high needs areas and emphasizing those as part of the project, and how's that being determined?
We, in partnership with HCM strategists, we have been working closely with WorkSource Montgomery to do a labor market analysis and take a look at where the current needs are. And one of the highest needs right now is registered nurses. And so we're in the beginning stages of looking at a pathway that begins as like a certified medical assistant and leads to potentially like an LPN and then RN. And so we've started to meet with Montgomery College to begin to plan out what that could look like from an apprenticeship model. And then we are also simultaneously beginning to engage with employers to see which employers would have an interest in creating like a registered nurse pathway. And so, yes, we're working with our partners throughout the county to identify what those labor market needs are. And then we're taking that time to plan out what does that model look like, and is that going to make sense for the employers? And then that's the employer side of the house. And then when we look at the education side, we have to think, how do we communicate this opportunity to students so that they're aware, they can begin planning for it, and they know when to apply for it. So there's two sides of the work that are happening simultaneously.
Gotcha. And then just final question for now. So I know these are one-time funds, but who does within MCPS look for federal and state and foundation grant opportunities? What office does that come out of? And I would assume, I would hope that they're looking at other potential options in this space.
So multiple offices at the same
Yeah.
time are looking at that. And so with us, we would be exploring the Perkins grant. We would be looking at Title IV. So there are different grants that we would take into consideration for funding.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. I yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very, very, very much. Turn now to Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. This is so exciting. This is really the work that we need to be doing, and it's great to hear about the thoughtfulness that you're bringing to it. How do some of the school-based work programs, like the automotive program at Damascus High School and other places, how do those fit into this picture?
So with our career technical education programs, we have 51 programs. The automotive program is available correctly at Damascus, at Thomas Edison. We have a program at Seneca Valley and Gaithersburg High School. And so students, as part of their career technical education programs, they have an opportunity, again, either for college level classes and or to take internships. And so what our goal is to look at for students to see what is a better match for them and to really give students that opportunity for them to map out their course. And so we know for some students, a college course might be the best match. Other students might want to do an opportunity for an apprenticeship that's a longer term engagement, more hours of greater commitment. And that's where I think, again, starting at a younger age and making sure that students at the middle school level, because a student who starts thinking about this in 11th or 12th grade, it's very late in the game. And we just really feel it's important that we start educating students at the middle school, that when they're feeding into their local high schools, that they know what's available, that they know what industry recognized credentials come with that pathway. With our CTE program, students are able to leave with industry recognized credentials that allow them to get jobs. And so there's just so many wonderful opportunities, and it's our job to educate students so they can make those choices.
Great. So it's great to hear that, you are planning on that's going to be incorporated into the platform, it sounds like. So as part of that's great. Well, it's not 2 days ago, I want to say I put in a request to do a committee meeting, briefing with the Economic Development and Education and Culture Committee on college and career pathways, workforce development. So I feel like I could sit and talk about this for hours. I'm sure we all could, and we will have more time to do that soon, hopefully. Thanks.
Absolutely, we absolutely will. And this is something a lot of us care about a lot, and I've appreciated our conversations, and I really appreciate Councilmember Albornoz mentioning just how hard the work is. And you've made progress since we saw you last, which is always what we want to see, and not to have the same conversation. That's significant progress. We always want to make more faster, but and I'm glad we're going to be able to approve this grant, which will help you continue that progress. But we will look to come back after budget, just for you, Mr. Krupe, and for Ms. McGuire to talk again about how's this going and where are we. And I want to come visit I want to visit these 4 high school hubs as part. Maybe we'll do a field trip or something, because I just think this is, and we'll obviously do the joint committee on the workforce development. That's something we did last council with the Fed committee and ENC, and now with economic development and ENC. We have to continue to help you to get the word out about these programs, get students thinking about. It's never been more important to connect where students are going and what they could do to their schooling. Never been more important. And particularly coming out of COVID and with all the challenges we're dealing with, that hands-on practical application is. I was just having a conversation with my daughter the other night. She was like, why do I have to take this science? And I was like, well, doing my best to connect it to something in the future.
Making the case.
Yeah, exactly. But this does it seamlessly. And so I'm really excited about the work, and we want to be partners and are partners with you in scaling it up as quickly as possible.
Thank you. We truly appreciate your partnership and the support. And this is Career and Technical Education Month. So on our website, we have a great new video that we hope many students, and we're using social media to get the video out. So it's not just career and technical education, it's also work-based learning. Part of that, of course, is apprenticeship. So we have learned in our journey that every time families have an opportunity, students to learn about their programs, we've never had a family member or student not be interested, right? There's always that spark, and they want to learn more, they want to know what's available. So we are excited to get those numbers up and to share them with you next time we see you.
Sounds good. Councilmember Mink has one more question.
Sorry, one more quick question. Our job placements into some of our Montgomery County, our public jobs? Is this part of that also? Because obviously we have deficiencies like pretty much everywhere, Department of Transportation to our first responders. So is that being incorporated? And there are some spaces, some departments that we've talked to who have not been, traditionally had a pathway that has been set up, a program that's been set up for a number of years, whereas others have. So are you kind of tapping into those as well?
Yes, we are in the process of working with Department of Health and Human Services to identify what positions they have an interest in beginning with. And oftentimes when we have that conversation with employers, it's not creating a new opportunity, it's taking a look at where they're struggling to hire, where are their pain points. And so the one idea of apprenticeship, it actually does two things. It helps a student develop a career plan so they know how they're advancing after high school. And then simultaneously, it's helping the employer fill their current vacancies they have, and then they're starting to develop talent. And so part of the apprenticeship model is for the employer to have a one-to-one mentor working with that apprentice. And so that part, like when you think about leadership and being able to pay it forward, employers are always looking for sustainability and retaining their employees. So if you have a current employee who's been with an organization for a number of years and they're now training the future talent of that company, they're paying forward to that company. They're training this future individual that's going to continue to advance in their organization. So yes, to answer your question, we are, and it's exciting work.
That's great. A resounding yes, it sounds like. Yeah.
And we're also even looking at Montgomery County within our own district, within our school system, to see what part-time positions we have available that could be filled by high school students. So we're looking at positions where students could walk to either an elementary or middle school with food and nutrition services, for example, and other part-time positions that we're not able to fill, that a high school student might want to work for 2 hours in the morning and make that money. So we are being creative within as well, and then we're reaching out to other businesses and organizations to see how they can help us.
And the exciting part is always a success story. So with MCPS being the second largest employer in Montgomery County, we have a process in place for apprentices, and now we have students graduating and continuing as MCPS employees.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so we had a student, Grant, he went to Wheaton and Edison. He had done the network operations course. He got his certification. He started out as a copier maintenance technician in our print shop. Knowing that we would have a retirement, our print shop manager trained this student. The lead repair technician is a mechanical engineer. So this student had that certification. He had a mechanical engineer working with him. Now he's an MCPS employee repairing and maintaining the copiers throughout our district.
Well, we definitely need more of those. As a former teacher, I can attest. So
Yes.
That's great. And then the last piece, not a question, but I'll just comment. If you're not already collaborating with college tracks, they are also leaning into building out their kind of timeline of time with which they're staying with the students, like into the career field. And so they are building out their bank there of employers. And so it'd be good to make sure that you all are fully, it sounds like you already know this, that you all are fully dovetailed on that as well. Thank you.
Awesome. A lot of exciting things happening. Thank you for sharing that story. That's really a good one. So without objection, I think we'll approve the grant, and we'll come back after budget, maybe in June or something, to hear how things are going and just get an update. And as we prepare for the students to head into their summer opportunities, including RISE, and so we'll have a lot to talk about then too. So, yes.
And we've also started to see employers in Summer Rise begin to take a look at the apprenticeship model.
Perfect.
We just had an employer in the fall get approved with Maryland Department of Labor, and so they're going to be adding 4 apprenticeship positions.
Oh, that's great.
awesome.
And
That's great, because Summer Rise is kind of like toe in the water.
yes,
And then you can use them hopefully for internships and apprenticeships.
exactly. Yeah, and for employers, it's almost like that interview before the interview.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So we got a 3-0. We'll send it to full council, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.